Morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Thank you.
Morning.
You got 30 seconds.
Oh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this special board meeting to order at 9 a.m. 8 a.m., sorry, which have been 9. All right. Let's see. Ty, how would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call.
President Sanamon.
Present.
Director Cordell.
Here.
Director Griffin.
Here.
Director Ritora.
Here.
Vice President Boyd.
Here. All right, posting of agenda declaration.
The agenda for today's special board meeting was posted on Tuesday, August 16, 2022.
Okay, conflict of interest declaration, Director Ritora.
None.
Director Griffin.
None.
Vice President Boyd.
None.
Director Cordell.
None.
All right, President Sanamon, none. That being said, I must inform you that I am an employee of the federal government. However, anything I say today and my opinions are mine and mine alone do not necessarily reflect those of my employer or of the board of directors. Public questions and comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board on any matter not on the agenda and over which the board has jurisdiction. However, no action may be taken by the board on any item not appearing on the agenda. Non-agenda speakers are asked to limit their presentations to 5 minutes. Public questions and comments on items listed on the agenda will be accepted at any time the item is brought forth for consideration by the board. When you're recognized by the chairperson, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you. Do we have any public questions or comments? All right. Those present, that's a no. Online? It doesn't appear that we have. So let's go ahead and move on to item 7, Finance Committee. 2022 rate study. Who wants to take this on?
It will be a joint effort between Stan and I. I'll kick things off. I think Stan has a good summary of accomplishments we've made so far. I appreciate your indulgence in letting us substitute this into today's discussion on the general manager. Time has kind of pressurized the system, and we're trying to get a product for you and the rest of the board to look at by November. And as such, we're having to have extra focus on finance. We met Tuesday this week to talk with staff about some ideas and some things that we'd like to consider as we move in and give direction ultimately to Mr. Hildebrand as to what options we'd like him to consider. We don't have a timeline yet back from him because we haven't had that initial discussion with him. Hopefully we'll be ready to do that next week. Stan and I are considering having another meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday next week to finalize based on you guys' acceptance of some recommendations that we'll submit to you today. It's not a detailed plan of attack, but it'll give you some general ideas of the way we're hoping to go, and they'll come back with a product that we can all have a chance to review later. Of substance, one thing that we didn't see from Mark was an alternate view on how we finance the CIP program in the future. We found that he did actually do a debt service consideration in addition to the pay-as-you-go consideration that we saw. So he has that we'll be able to see soon. We're going to also ask that you consider an abbreviated CIP schedule based on the priorities that Krieger and Stewart have given us. Instead of trying to do all this in such a short period of time, can we afford to stretch it out a bit just to control the rates, because the rates were getting out of hand, or the rate of the increases were getting pretty much out of hand. I'll leave it there. I think Stan has a few details that we can provide now. And again, we're going to just make this a short discussion because we know we have some other commitments today. Stan?
What I have here is a slightly modified version of what was discussed at the finance, at the finance committee meeting. Make sure, Mike, did you want? The back page is actually, you can obviously go through the whole thing in your leisure. The back page summarizes the ability to actually borrow money to do the CIP program. There's a slight modification from what was presented at the Finance Committee in that looking at the general plan, I came up with $11.2 million worth of things that needed to be done soon. The staff apparently in the meantime got together with Chuck Krieger and they came up with the top 5. So instead of using the top 3 out of the general plan, I went back and looked at the top 5, which requires $13.8 million loan rather than a $11.2 million loan. But in any event, if you look at the very back, the last sheet, yes. If you look at the 30-year loan payment, I looked at 1.5% interest, which is perhaps a optimistic view of what the state revolving fund might be able to do, and went up to 4.5% interest, which is more closer to what an actual bond loan would require. And I think we're still waiting on Ty to get back from his bond person to give us the number that we're getting from the bond person. Don't have it yet.
I already received that. So yesterday with our bond rating, bonds were selling at about 4.3%.
Pardon?
4.3%.
4.3%, okay.
That's today, of course, so it could.
Sure, understood. And obviously they fluctuate, so the even the California State Revolving Fund changes from year to year. This year, for some reason, it's 1.1%. Not sure why it's that low, at least that's what the internet says it is. Haven't checked with anybody that's gotten any 1.1% interest loans. But if you look at the right-hand block, you'll notice that with an increase of $900,000, $1 million, or $1.1 million in debt service, that is, we increased the debt service from approximately, I think we're about 2.5 million is what we're at now. If we increased it by one of those 3 numbers, we would be able to cover those first 5 projects that we talked about at our meeting the other day. On a 20-year loan, depending upon what the interest rate is, we could cover all of them, with the exception of the, I guess, the lower left-hand corner. So our ability to bond or fund a loan, I think, is very straightforward. 4.3 obviously is close to the very bottom, obviously. And at that point, we would have to have the $1.1 million increase in the debt service, probably. So in any event, all this does is indicate that, we certainly have the capability of taking out a loan, doing at least the first 5 and probably more if we wanted to, projects. As a matter of fact, if you look at the numbers, what they give is both the amount of money you can borrow and the number of projects, or the minimum number of projects. And since I didn't have anything other than the first 5 projects, I couldn't actually put down how many total projects. But obviously, if you were to go to, let's say the state revolving fund went up as much as 2.5%, with a $1 million loan, you could still finance $21.1 million worth of various capital projects. So obviously, there's a big benefit to going to the state revolving fund, but clearly we don't have enough information now at this point in time. Obviously, we are a public water system, and the whole idea of the state revolving fund is to fund public water systems, but can't say one way or the other until we get a lot further into looking at that particular loan, whether, we will be able to get it. But in any event, all this points out is bonding is an option, and as little as $1 million a year would do the job.
So there was quite a bit of discussion about the state revolving fund and our potential eligibility for it. I mean, it would be wonderful, right? Great race. With the timeline we're working on, we realize that the rate study needs to consider what the bond approach, if we're going to think about financing, the more worst case, if you will, bond approach at the 4.3% as we know it today would be the number that we would probably ask Mark to use as he goes through the full rate adjustment. We don't think we're going to get an answer on the state revolving fund in time to meet the aggressive timeline that we're working to right now. So the rate study will focus at probably 4.3% interest rate, and the fallout from that. I'm not sure how we're going to embrace the state revolving fund. I thought perhaps if we filed in parallel for a bond issuance and a state revolving fund request, that if the state revolving or state SRM were to come through, perhaps we could pay off the bond, and Stan has raised an issue that we may not be able to do that. In fact, the argument that we would be making for the state revolving money would be predicated by the fact that we have this bill that we need to pay. Well, if we already paid it with a bond, it's kind of a weak argument to go in and say we need money. So in any event, I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I agree with Stan that we need to look at it. We need to understand the state revolving fund eligibility and qualifications for it. It's just too good of a deal.
I think we definitely need to get a consultant on board. There's no doubt in my mind that the whole state revolving fund issues, there are got to be consultants that help guide one through this process, because it is a process. On the other hand, you save millions of dollars, so therefore it is a worthwhile process. I just as a data point, our COP 2018 loan is a combination of 4% and 5% bonds. So the 4.3 is just right in line with what we're doing now. The COP 2018 is a 30-year note, or paid off in 30 years, and I don't understand how it switches from 4 to 5%, but that's really not a big deal at this point in time. We are paying both 4 and 5% for the bonds, so it's consistent with how we've done business in the past, I guess is all I'm saying.
A couple other minor details. I think we still have time to talk to these. We'll be looking at the commodity versus fixed price ratios, currently 60-40 at the moment. We'll be asking Mark to look at different ratios. We don't want to put anything at risk. We don't want to get into the problem we had 10 years ago when we asked people to conserve and we didn't have money to pay for the bills. We've considered looking at the tier widths and perhaps even the elimination of tier 4. We're also considering looking at, and we're waiting for council guidance on this and how we collect the replenishment fee. Right now, each tier is paying into the replenishment fee. We're basically charging every 100 cubic foot with a fixed amount. Is there a different way that we could do that to relieve some of the pressure on the lower tier users? We know this is a burden to certain portions of our community, and maybe we can lighten that burden on the fixed income, low tier use folks in the valley. So, but we don't have guidance on that from council yet as to whether or not that's legal, or we have to make sure every 100 cubic feet has the same number or same assessment. So there'll be other little minor twitches like that we'll be offering us as options to consider when we come around to look at this total package in November. And again, we're trying to get this thing started with guidance to Mark next week. So.
In the meantime, what we're interested in is if people have strong feelings, we need to know what they are. And so far, I don't know if Don's gotten anything from any of you, but I know I have got nothing from anybody. And Mel, have you gotten any input from anybody?
Not yet.
So, for right now, we got Mel's opinion and we got my opinion. And so, obviously, at the end, the board's going to have to vote on this, so we want to make sure that we incorporate as many of the ideas and thoughts.
Well, the board has the list of projects that are important to complete, so we can give you an opinion.
Oh, this is a more complete list of the capital improvements than we had previously. And obviously, that'll get fit in there as well. But realistically, if we had $30 million tomorrow, we couldn't actually pursue however many projects we have. There's a limit to how many projects we could have going at one time. So we need to look at that as well. But obviously, this list is better than what we've had. I wish it were more consistent with the general plan, but it's what we have now, and we'll go ahead with this, I would assume, right?
I just want to make one comment. I appreciate you guys doing this, but it's my opinion that we gave you guys, the Finance Committee, approval to do this and to go over all this. So I don't think it's that we're not interested. It's definitely not the case for me. We just had you guys do it because we felt you were the best to make these decisions. So I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate staff coming up with this assessment. My concern is if we get a loan and we start these 5 projects, which I agree are important, but then if you look ahead in 2024, 2026, we have some wells that are going to need replaced potentially. It could be added costs, so that concerns me a little bit. But okay. We got to do what we got to do, and they've made this list and it's prioritized, and I appreciate it.
Just to comment about the list. The original list was put together by Krieger and Stewart prior to our first meeting with them. So staff reviewed that list, discussed it with Krieger and Stewart, and the original list they put out was based on the general plan, but of course we've got a 10-year capital improvement plan that was approved by the board that differed a little bit from the general plan. So what we did, we collaborated with Krieger and Stewart and produced this list. You'll notice, for example, on the 10-year capital improvement plan, there are no well replacements. And if you look at this list, go down to number 7. An A-zone well due for replacement in 2024. That's based on life cycle, which you could expect, but we don't know for sure that we'll need the well. So, for example, an expense like that, we would look at replacing it when we need to, and we would probably pull from reserves to pay for that well rather than put it into a financing plan, so.
Well, the reserves are for emergencies, and if we have an emergency well replacement need, that would be the time to,
Right.
to
So I
use
just
that
want to make
money.
sure that, to highlight that, but yeah, just want to make sure that you understand when the projects are in the general plan didn't necessarily coincide with the projects in the approved 10-year capital improvement plan. One thing that's missing, that we're still working on, and we'll bring to the next finance committee meeting, would be a schedule of the spending for these projects. So, and we've got some general dates, especially on the wells, but we need to put some thought to how it all fits into a spending schedule. So we'll bring that as an additional document or add to this.
This is probably obvious, but I'll say it anyway. Stan gave us, thank you for the analysis, Stan. Gave us some options on debt service, 0.9 to 1.1 million. Another option for us, we do everything on this list with more debt service. So that may be an option that we have Mark look at, is to what if we were to go for 1.5 million debt service as an idea, so that we could do.
There's nothing sacred about what I started with was $11.2 million capital program coming out of basically nothing more than the general plan is all I had. Okay, so, and those three numbers fit well with what I got out of the general plan. If we want to do more, then obviously we would have to raise, and in my mind, when we start looking at the state revolving fund, if we can do that immediately, that immediately being 1 to 2 years, nothing happens quickly on the state revolving fund, then we can throw in a whole lot more stuff. If indeed we start adding all these numbers up and they come to a large number, and I'm sure they will, we might be better off getting an immediate loan to cover the critical 2 or 3 or 4, planning for 4 or 5 years from now, having completed all the details we need to get the state revolving fund. Because my feeling is, over the last 20 years, the average state revolving fund interest rate has been around $1.5, $1.6 million. That's just too good to pass up. And especially if we have a large number of projects to do, pushing some of them off 3 or 4 years to save $10 or $15 million is well worth it, I think. Again, obviously got to do the critical one first. The other aspect of that is that's why we have the reserve, because of emergencies. So if an emergency happens, that's when we use the reserve. And I'm not at all interested in taking down our reserves now to do capital improvement. That wasn't what those reserves were for.
So, again, if you have any hard issues that you want us to consider, I'll take your.
On the other hand, we appreciate your confidence.
Yep,
Yeah,
I appreciate the
good man.
confidence, Director Griffin, and we'll move forward. We're ready to move forward, but we just wanted to make sure, since we don't have a lot of time to redo, we want to make sure we got everything that it might be of consideration or concern from the board considered into our guidance that we give Mark next week. It sounds like we've got a clear go-ahead.
So let me ask you a question. What are you hoping to receive from the board of directors, and how soon? Status report, or are you expecting an action? Just to be so I'm clear.
Today?
Yeah, it was, if you.
No, not today. I mean, we have some information now, and you're meeting again next week. Is there some feedback you'd like from us? And if so, what deadline?
Well, we have the list.
Is it prioritized by staff, or do you want us to prioritize it?
This has been prioritized.
Okay.
Right. And it's the consequences of not having.
If you have a difference of opinion regarding.
Look it over and let you know. Okay.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know anything more than the staff knows for sure regarding the prioritization of the capital projects. The question is where we draw the line, or if there's two lines that need to be drawn, where we draw the two lines.
Okay, and we can get that to you by your meeting next week, if we have disputes.
Okay, I think that'll work fine, and then we can schedule, we'll have that schedule out. I'll talk with Lauren about what's the best date for next week. and
Right,
then-
if you don't get replied, press on.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
I want to ask the other two directors, Cordell and Griffin, if you read this order and you like or agree with the order, just send them an email saying, agree with the order as listed, and that way they won't have to worry about whether they're getting feedback. Yeah, just send them a mail.
I'll say it now, I agree with the order. Staff makes a recommendation.
Can I request I be copied in on that?
Yes, you may request that. So send it to Al and CC Dawn on that one.
President Santamon, if you don't mind, I wanted to point something out.
Yes.
On the list,
Yeah,
basically starting at number 7,
okay.
those are if needed.
If needed, yes,
If
right.
needed. Yeah, and our highest priorities are definitely up to number 3. Number 4 is going to be done. It's not a high cost item, not something you'd probably include in a bond issuance. And I see number 5 as more than, not needing to be part of this next 5 years, so, or 4 or 5 years, so.
So you have your 1 through 3 definitely need to be on, if we did the bond issuance.
Yes. I think, Jason, would you agree with that?
Say 5 could be put off.
I agree. Number 5 can be put off because accomplishing numbers 1 through 3 would help push number 5 off because we can use the Springer PRV to feed Kendall Tank.
Okay.
Could I ask for some clarification as to what, if needed? I mean, does that mean if it just goes dead all of a sudden? Or
If
goes
we start,
dry all of a
I
sudden?
think she's saying that if we start to see loss of production in the well, that indicates that it's going to fail in the near future.
Okay, and you would know that a year ahead of time?
We'll start to see the telltale signs, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see the signs, we'll pull it, we'll take a look at it, and we'll determine whether it needs to be replaced or not. Sometimes it's a catastrophic failure like we saw at number 8, but,
If we can make better use of the wells in the southwest well field and pump water down to the A-zone area, do we still need, I mean, do we need to both increase our ability or capacity to shove water down to Zone A and have another Zone A well? I mean, what's the trade-off, or is there a trade-off?
That's something we'll have to look at in the future based on the demand of the system. I mean, I don't know right now if one of the A-zone wells fails, do we need to replace it? I don't know until we see.
Well, it's been, our water usage has been going down now for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And with the replenishment fee, it's gonna keep going down, so, for a short time, anyway. So, okay, you're gonna be at the finance meeting anyway, so we can talk that.
So, perfect, thank you. One quick question. So 4 could be done paid from funds, it's only $125,000. You're saying that number 5 could be delayed if we address items 1 through 3. Item 6, is that something that you would like, that would be included in the bonding, or is that something that, what's,
I think we'd include that in the bonding, yes.
okay?
Be uncomfortable not having another tank up there.
And then we have well replacements, 7, 8, 9,
Yeah.
and 10. So
They're all based on a 50-year life normally of a well.
mean time to failure.
But
So really, those are all as needed. So if you're bonding, you would probably throw 11 in the bond mix, is that right?
I wouldn't throw anything in a bond unless you know for sure you're going to do the work.
Okay.
You don't want to get the money and not spend it.
Let me rephrase the question. The top 5 projects that aren't going to be paid as needed, can't be delayed, and couldn't just be paid out of cash are 1, 2, 3, 6, and 11. Is that correct?
Yeah, 11's definitely a if needed thing. Right now, we don't need it, so.
So that's, really, there's 4 items that must be addressed, can't be delayed, cannot be paid out of current funds, and that's 1, 2, 3, and 6. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say 1, 2, 3, 5, and 11. Now you're saying 1, 2, 3, and 6?
5 could be delayed if you addressed one of the
Oh,
items.
it could be delayed.
Yes, it could be
I'm
delayed.
sorry.
So there's really, yeah, okay, thank you, that helped a great deal. Any other directors' questions or comments?
I have a comment. I think that we're over analyzing this. I think we need to get a number from this report. It's not our job to sit here and determine what staff's gonna do. It's our job to make the funds available. And so what we're asking for today, in my understanding, is for Hildebrand to do a study and to do a cost analysis, and is it feasible to get a loan? Is it feasible to do this over time? And that's what we're at right now. I don't think we should be picking projects or anything else today. What we gotta do is, this is what we want in our study, and we gave you guys the authority to move forward with that study in the best we can, instead of, we've wasted 30 minutes.
I don't think it's what.
We've only got a lady on board for an hour.
I disagree with you that it is wasted. So, and the part of the planning process is, what am I planning for? That's 1, 2,
We need a
3,
dollar
and
amount.
6.
But I agree that, you know, once we said, you know, we need to borrow 10 million, 15 million, you know, what it's spent on, you know, we just need to make sure that we've got enough critical projects to spend the 10 million, and what they are, it should be the staff issue.
You did hand us a detailed list, and you did ask for our input, so I am going to ask you questions. And I don't think that needs to be driven into the ground, but as part of the normal planning process, when you send something to Hildebrand, he's gonna have to know what you expect to do. And it might not be $11 million, it might be more, it might be less.
So we now have 1, 2, 3, 6. We have a number. We aggregate those together. We have a number to start working with, and we'll do that. And
You have $10 million roughly worth of projects with 1, 2, 3, and 6.
thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, no, be careful what you ask for, you might get it. Are there any questions or
good.
Are there any questions or
I agree.
comments
We need to move on.
from the public?
I'll have to remember what you just said. I can use that time to time. One thing that still confuses me,
Mike,
and
could you, I hate to do this, but process, if you could state name and.
Yeah, Mike Neal.
Thank you. Ridgecrest.
still confuses me that this has to be done by November. I have a problem with going into, especially things that are going to cost ratepayers, obviously, more money. The issue at this point is just how much. And it's getting rushed with, you know, what I recall, you gotta have 45 days notice for the rate study hearings and so forth and so on. My approach to doing things, unless there's some driving reason to make me have to say, oh, I've gotta do it, get it done right now, is to do it and get it done right, take the time you need to do it right, and whatever that is, that is. An old saying I remember from a machinist out at base was, if you don't have time to do it right, when are you gonna have time to do it over? So the point was, get it right the first time, and if you have to take longer and it doesn't get done by November, unless there's some reason that I'm unaware of, I don't know why we have to keep having to push for that and just say we get it done, and then we have the rate study whenever we get it done to our satisfaction.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody online that would like to comment? I don't see anybody. I think that's the only one online is our lawyer.
I've got one thing.
Okay?
I agree with the track that Mel and Stan are going down. As far as bonding or state funding, something like that. And I agree with Mike. I usually don't. But I don't think November is a cutoff date for us. I'm not running for re-election, but there's no way I would ever vote for a 10, 10, 10, 8, 8 raise to the public, no matter what. They're asked to do enough as it is right now, and I would go for a smaller amount of the increase, but never those amounts. I mean, that's totally absurd. I've never even heard that at any of the board meetings as far as the rate hike goes. So, anyway, that's where I'm at, and, I don't know why the November is the date, but we do need to pursue the bonding and the state funding. You guys are doing great. Thank you.
Okay, so the reported interest rate for this year was 10%. Even if you raised it 10, 10, 10, 8, 8, in order to pay for the project, you're still 10% behind the power curve. You cannot allow the water district revenues to fall below that which is necessary to sustain the water district, or we will have to fire employees and reduce our projects and risk the entire organization. So there has to be an increase enough to make sure that the water district remains solvent. And that this is at the same time that we're getting financial pressures from the state and from other organizations, especially in reference to everybody having to use 42 gallons of water per day indoors, or the water districts will get fined. We do not know how that is going to shake out, but we do know the fines are substantial. So we cannot, I do not like rate increases. I don't at all, and that is a steep rate increase. But we have an obligation to the current ratepayers and the future ratepayers to have a financially sound organization. And there's no point in dragging the rate study on into the next year. It should be ready for implementation in January. I have agree with Director Rotora and Director Griffin that most of the work is done by the staff, and I think with appropriate directors' input, they can get this done in time to meet the proper deadline without rushing the study.
I would like to point out that there are some things, such as the debt service that doesn't inflate. And that's $2.5 million. And also there is the replenishment fee, which will not only not inflate, but it will be going down because the water usage is going down.
That's true about the water usage going down, but there is a discussion at the Groundwater Authority of changing allocations so that the water district has to pay for more water.
Yeah, that's their discussion. Yeah, that's not our discussion.
No, that's not.
They can charge, that doesn't mean they're gonna get.
That's a very bold statement, and with that, that's not necessarily board policy. So let's move on to the next item, and that will be the closed session. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating in the open session. I'm going to call it the open session closed at 8:36, and I'm going to call the closed session open at 8:45 a.m. Thank you. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I'm going to call the open session open again at 9:41 a.m. Mr. Worth.
Yes, thank you. The board met with staff and consultants under executive session, and the board authorized the consultants to start negotiations and to make a contingent offer to an applicant for the position of general manager. That's all I have. No other action was taken that requires disclosure.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 9, adjournment. I'm going to call the open session closed at 9:42 a.m. Thank you for your time and attention.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
Good day.
Okay, I'm headed to the.